Chapter 24. A thin beam of light grew on the ceiling above our bed. "It's about time, son. I'd been up 4 hours already. I should have had an excellent night's sleep after Eli's recovery, but the lack of improvement in my mother bugged me all night and robbed me of sleep. What did I do wrong? Does someone actually have to be dying for it to work?" I repeated the prayer I said before I went to bed. God, help me use this gift to the best of my ability. Restore my mother to health and relieve her of her pain. Did I pray wrong? Is that even possible? I crawled out of bed and prepared for my day shift in the ER. Day shifts started early with the trade-off that I should be home for dinner. The house was quiet except for me, and I slipped out silently. It was easier than answering questions about how my mother was doing. I walked into the ER the same way I had for years. The same parking lot, the same badge reader outside the door, the same anticipation as I approached the patient care area, curious whether it was going to be busy, slow, or the magical average that the administrators always use for staffing decisions. Natalie seemed pretty shaken up about what happened yesterday. I wondered if she got any more sleep than I did, and whether she shared the story with anyone. The answer to that became self-evident within the first 10 minutes. Frequent glances from everyone who walked by confirmed that she probably did. Gossip traveled through a hospital faster than the truth could run. Leave it to my partner, Michael, to skip the awkwardness and lay it out bluntly. "Since you're a miracle worker now, I'm going to let you see all the sick patients today. If you need me, I'll be treating ear infections and sticking scalpels into abscesses." I loved his humor, equal part gallows and self-deprecation, two of my favorite kinds. Fair enough. I'd hate to tax that small brain of yours anyway. We'd been teasing each other for years, even before I died. No sense changing what had been working between us. He smiled at me and accepted the dig with a few nods. "So, this ability actually works, huh?" "It does." I paused and stared at the floor. "But I haven't quite figured it out. I tried it on my mom last night and she didn't feel any better afterward. My parents left dejected and then I couldn't sleep." "Well, hang in there. I'm sure things will turn around for her. God doesn't make mistakes." Before I could nod in agreement, a harsh tone over the intercom barged into our conversation. "Code Blue, labor and delivery, room 307. Michael and I locked eyes and began the classic battle of emergency medicine. It was a chance to help a patient truly in need, not another chronic pelvic pain or patient concerned about their blood pressure. He sat closer to the hallway that led to the elevator, but I was the freshest one on the shift, with fewer patients. "Why don't you go?" he said. He's right. It's my turn, and my absence would be less of a distraction to the department. "If you can't get them back, just do your thing. Or maybe do it as soon as you walk in the door, and then get back here to help me out." I stared at him for a moment, waiting for the smile to break on his lips, but it never came. He wasn't joking. I turned and jogged down the hall toward the elevator bank. Labor and delivery meant the potential for 2 patients and the highest anxiety imaginable. I shouldn't have any. I had an ace up my sleeve. Except it didn't work the last time I tried it. My apprehension about running toward a potential neonatal code, combined with my uncertainty about the gift, left me an unsettled mess on my way toward potentially 2 critically ill patients. It's easy to tell from the hallway which room the code is in. People never stayed in the room. It's a constant cycle of people in and out. As new staff arrived, others headed for supplies, or someone decided they are no longer needed. I spotted the room immediately, and my heart sank. This wasn't a false alarm. The terrified expressions on the faces of these tough-as-nails OB nurses told me this was the real deal. A scream rose above the noise in the room as I entered, and then a second one. Too close together to have come from the same person. The adorable, high-pitched, wavering screams of a newborn. 2 of them, twins. My fear of 2 patients paled compared to the realization that I now had 3. But then I realized neonates don't scream when they're sick. They stop breathing. I sighed as it became clear our job would be to code a fully grown patient. That's my jam. The cries came from 2 tiny babies, wrapped in blue hospital towels. They rested in the arms of a man who tried his best to console his new sons, while trying to monitor his wife. "What happened?" I asked as I pulled on a set of sterile gloves. A nurse tossed a sterile gown at me, which I slid over my arms. "Got to be an amniotic fluid embolism," said the obstetrician, performing chest compressions. She was fine 1 minute, then she became anxious and grabbed her chest. Said she couldn't breathe right before she had a seizure. Then we lost pulses and have been doing compressions ever since. I watched his technique, and while well-intentioned, he wasn't pushing down hard enough on her chest. Inadequate CPR allowed too many people to die, and too many people allow inadequate CPR to continue because they were afraid to say something. Not me. Push her chest down farther and allow it to fully recoil before you go again. It's not a seesaw. You need to punch and relax. The respiratory therapist provided breaths for the patient. An open airway kit lay on a table next to him. I picked up the tube and stood at the head of the bed, prepared to intubate her. As I did, I had an odd feeling of familiarity, as if I knew the woman. I dismissed the thought quickly. I wasn't sure I knew her and was certain I didn't want any emotions getting in the way. The team continued CPR without success. I knew where this was going, and it didn't require her to be on a ventilator. At least with me in the room. I handed the bag back to the respiratory therapist and took over compressions to free the obstetrician to do whatever life-saving procedure he needed to do next. To my surprise, he just stood next to the bed. "What's next?" I asked. "Meds, CPR, repeat," he said with a shake of his head. "I can't suck amniotic fluid out of her heart." "Is it working?" asked the woman's husband. I glanced up at him. Did he think we did CPR on people with pulses? I couldn't fault him. His emotions just cycled from the highest they had been to the lowest point imaginable. It would be unusual for his brain to work correctly at this moment. "Not yet, but we're just getting started." If this was an amniotic fluid embolism, there wasn't much we had to offer, other than what we were already doing. Except me. I had something that worked once and then didn't work. If I stopped chest compressions to do it and it failed, they'd sue me for violating the standard of care and she would be less likely to survive. We don't stop CPR to pray over a patient. Prayer is absolutely welcome during times of crisis in the hospital, but care shouldn't stop during the process. But shouldn't doesn't mean couldn't. And this wasn't prayer. This was a miracle. Because I truly am a miracle worker. It was time to give up another month of life expectancy, so that these twin boys could meet their mother, so this father could have his wife back. I removed my hands from her chest and stood up straight. But I chickened out. I couldn't just say the words on a bold proclamation of faith. "Pulse check." Every team member close to the patient reached out and placed a finger on her, willing her heart to push blood against their finger. Now was the time. I raised my right arm up over her and spoke. "I will restore you to health and heal your wounds, for the old order of things is passing away." I felt every eye in the room on me at that moment. Well, not the twin boys, or the patient, but definitely everyone else. "I've got a pulse," shouted the respiratory therapist, drawing the attention of the room. "So do I," said the obstetrician. "Me too," said 2 nurses in unison. Yes, it worked again. I focused my gaze on the woman in the bed. Her color changed like biscuit dough in an oven, moving from pale white to a light brown as her heart pumped blood back to her skin. Now I definitely recognized her. I'd watched her for years. She'd been in my living room at least once a week, but always on the television. Her chest rose between breaths, delivered by the respiratory therapist. She's breathing on her own. I turned to her husband and smiled. She's going to be just fine." "What did you do?" he asked. It didn't sound like an accusation. They were the words of someone who witnessed a miraculous feat and could not believe what he saw. "My secret's out of the bag. Everyone is going to know about it after this. I just saved the life of our local news anchor, the one who documented her entire pregnancy as an uplifting experience for a community too often rocked by crime and depressing news stories." I sighed and pulled off my gown and gloves. I stepped over next to him and held my arms out toward him. "May I?" I asked, gesturing to the child in his left arm. He twisted his body and allowed me to take a child from him. I held the little guy and rocked him gently in my arms to calm his wiggling. "It's a long story. Do you have a few minutes?" A soft groan rose from the bed. The patient's right arm rose to push the mask off her face. "Hey, we need to sedate her," said the respiratory therapist. "No, let's wake her up. She needs to see her family," I said. I pushed the button to raise the head of the bed up from the flat CPR position. "Who are you?" asked the patient, toward some doctor holding one of her new children. "I'm one of the ER doctors. Here, let me hand you this little guy. He's been asking to lie in bed with his mother." The obstetrician undid the patient's gown and folded it down off her shoulders. I removed the swaddled blanket and rested the child on the left side of her chest. The agitated baby calmed down immediately. Her husband repeated the move with the other child and then sat down in a chair next to her. "Honey, he's not just an ER doctor. You'll never guess what just happened."